All right, welcome, Jane. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. I'm good. Just getting over a cold, I think, like everyone else. And
Yes.
but other than that, I'm doing well.
All right, awesome, awesome. So, for those of you who don't know Miss Jane Bond, she is a legend in the real estate game. She has conquered, broken down all the barriers in the luxury real estate market and has, really created a wonderful career for herself. So, Jane, what had you interested in entrepreneurship? What had that fire been lit for you to do things on your own in your own way?
I believe it was my mom and dad. They laid kind of the blueprint for me
Hmm.
without realizing they were.
Hmm.
My mom, as far as I can remember, she was a nurse, she was
Hmm.
a licensed practice nurse, which is like LPN at that time, and she moved on to be a registered nurse. She always wanted to be what she would call a female doctor,
Mm.
but being born in the 30s, it was a little difficult. And then she had kids. Actually, I have my mom and dad had 7 kids, so I have
Oh, wow.
sisters and one brother, my siblings, and
Hmm.
my dad actually only went to third grade, and he became an entrepreneur in his own right, and he did well for himself.
Wow.
And actually hired my mother. When my mother was a registered nurse, my father went into the bar business,
Hmm.
and he actually accumulated 5 to 6 bars and 2 nightclubs.
Oh, wow.
And I kind of watched him grow and watch our life grow differently from where we were to where we were on our way to. And I took
Mhm.
note of that. And even though they worked longer and harder and more hours, they were playing by their own rules. And our
Right.
life was changing right before our eyes. We had better cars, better clothes, you know. I'm a little older than most people think. So
Mhm.
yeah, we had a better lifestyle as I was growing up, and I started watching it happen. And actually, my first stint at business, I think I want to say ooh, I probably was in the 11th or 10th grade, and
Mhm.
one of the bars had a kitchen over top of it.
Okay.
And my dad and my sister out one day, and we would be with my father all the time. And our neighbors would, talk about us all the time because we were females and we were in the bars, so to speak.
Okay.
Back in those days, in the 70s, it was not ladylike, but
Mm.
the bars were back in those days because, as I remember, people would dress up to come to the bars, and then they had a
Mm.
specific where the ladies would come in and they would look beautiful. And then one Sunday they would dress up gorgeous and then
Mm.
go to church, have drinks before they go to church, and then come
Before
back
church?
to church and have more drinks. And I just, I watched everything, and I was always like a sponge, always taking things in.
Mm.
So, as I watched them progress, I thought, wow, that's when the light bulb went off.
Mhm.
And I would be with my dad. We were the only 2 girls pretty much left at home, me and my youngest sister, and we would be with my dad all the time. We would go to the bars. He taught us how to, do inventory, which he
Wow.
used to always call FIFO, first in, first out, how to
Mm.
handle this, taught me how to count money. And, it's so funny. I pride myself on really counting money and counting money really fast and turning the money in the right side
Mm.
way.
Mhm.
And I know the bank, and people go, "Oh wow, were you a teller?" And I go, "No, my dad taught me how to count money, put money in perspective." So having a foundation based on respect for money
Mhm.
and understanding what that meant at a young age, and
Mhm.
then having the opportunity at one point not knowing if we were going to be able to go to school, to the university. We
Mm.
had that opportunity because they worked so hard.
Right.
And I'm going to digress a little bit because I want to definitely answer that question.
No,
What
go ahead.
happened was we had a kitchen above one of the bars, and my sister and I had went out with my dad one day, and we went to a bar, and they were selling chicken,
Mm.
fried chicken across the bar,
He's
and
like,
I
"That
was like,
sounds good."
it sounds good, sounds familiar too. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, like, Dad, we called him Green Bean because he
Mhm.
always carried a lot of cash.
Oh,
And I said, Green Bean, why don't you get us some wings to go? And at that time, they were the full wing with the pit and the, not
gotcha.
winged in. So it was really interesting. So we took some home, my sister and I. I think my sister's maybe 3 or 4 years younger than I.
Mhm.
And she started eating. She was like, well, Jane, you can fry chicken better than this. And I said, I
Okay.
know, girl, I can. I said, if I had a place to cook some chicken, I could make some money. And she was like, well, why don't you open up the kitchen? Why don't you ask Green if you could open up the kitchen over top of the bar, which was
Mhm.
called Dolphin Street West at the time. And I opened it up and called it Karen's Kitchen because that's my first name. Jane is my
Ah,
second.
okay.
And my dad, the funny story is that I started making money right away, which money, as I saw it, was a lot for us.
Mhm.
And I remember the third week, I made maybe $500-600, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is
Wow.
really fun."
Right.
Selling out the chicken, and then my dad made up. I think I'm not 100% sure. I think he made up a story and said someone broke in a bar, stole all the food, stole all the chicken because he didn't like that the men from the bar were coming upstairs spending so much time with us while we
Oh,
were frying the chicken.
really? Okay.
And I had enlisted one of my girlfriends to help me. So we were like, I don't know, 14, 15 young people up there. And
Mhm.
I would close the kitchen down at 9:30. And he allowed me to open it up at, I think, 5:36 when I
Mhm.
got from school, after I did my homework and got home early enough where I had enough time to sleep and to take care of things there. So that was my
Wow.
first entrepreneurship. And I think the respect for money and
Right.
understanding do for you. And if you, worked hard and built your own foundation, you could really do well. And
Wow.
I
And
could
then
share with you, never had a job.
wow, that's awesome. A lot of people I speak to who are entrepreneurs worked and then realized that they didn't like, how that felt to have someone else be in charge of your time, but you actually never had a job.
Well, I had one job, which I mean, I guess people would say it was a job. I was a flight attendant at one time in my life, and
Okay.
that was one of my first jobs. And to me, it wasn't a job; it was a vacation.
Right.
Full-time benefits. With the part-time job of flying wherever you wanted to go in your heart, wherever
Right.
your heart desired, you could go. So to me, I didn't have a boss because I was up in the air,
Mhm.
and I became the boss. I became the first flight attendant. So,
You were the
and that
first
was
flight
it.
attendant?
I was the first flight attendant, meaning I was what they call the ISM,
Oh,
International Flight Service Manager. So when you got on board, I was the one greeting everyone, telling you, go
okay.
aft, so forth. And that was pretty much one of my only jobs I really ever had. Everything else I created on my own.
Mm.
So
And from I know that you did some modeling at some point. Was that before that or after the flight attendant?
that was actually after. I was a little old, and I had left New York after I graduated from school, but
Mhm.
I returned to New York. And that's when my career started taking off with acting and modeling. And I realized that really quickly that I liked making money. And
Mm.
I didn't want to kind of dictate when I was going to be paid or how I could be paid,
Mhm.
or choose me to be paid. So that was a quick stint. But I enjoyed it. I had a stint on Sex in the City, and
Oh,
I did a
cool.
lot of when no one knew what Sex in the City was. That was me on there. I enjoyed that part of my life, and I enjoyed going on auditions and understanding that, and that made me go into actually entertainment management. Um,
Mm.
be behind the camera than in front of the camera. So,
Right.
I found that a lot of people thought I should have been in front of the camera. So,
Yeah, so is it something that you sort of fell into managing people? Did someone just say, "I just want you to manage me"? How did that go?
well, I've had several careers in my life. After flying, I decided, I really wanted to have my own business and make enough money where I could sit in first class without having to be able to fly free
I
because
love
that's what
that.
I did. And I
Mhm.
thought, what it'd be like for me to pay for first class and sit there and be like everyone else.
Mhm.
And so I went into interior design when I knew nothing about interior design, but I got lucky
Wow.
because last years of my career as a flight attendant, I decided to travel around the world and enjoy myself. And I happened to meet, I decided to take a charter one day with a
Mhm.
friend of mine called the Buddy Bid partner at the time. And it was for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I met one of the team players and told him I was an interior designer. And he gave he gave me the opportunity. I could talk the talk because I had been all around the world.
I
He gave me the
see.
opportunity to find his house out,
Mhm.
and that that was something that, blew my mind because I really knew how to do it. And from
Wow.
that time on, it was like a whirlwind. My name went through the teams, the San Diego Chargers, the Eagles, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. My name just started flowing through the teams and
Wow.
being able to work. And I had the knack for being able to speak to, a player and his wife or his friend or female, whoever he was dating, without them even thinking about, that I was interested in their party. It was always them
Yeah,
together. And I knew
I
I
got
could
you.
isolate between the couple, when I was speaking with them to make them both feel very, very comfortable.
Yeah.
And I
So
think
I wanted to
that was a
interject.
good quality.
Sorry, I wanted to interject because I know for a lot of women, there's this thing called imposter syndrome, right? Where you feel where we sort of dim our lights or we don't go for things as vigorously as men do because we don't think that we're worthy or that we don't have it, right? So how did you said that you did it and at the time you hadn't had any experience. So you didn't have imposter syndrome. How did you overcome that or even if it never existed, like what gave you that sort of courage?
Um, I think the confidence of being able to fly and meet people from all over the world, from all walks of life, and
Mm.
wanting to engage, wanting to know who they were,
Mhm.
where did you come from, what's your life about, and I was always one when all the other flight attendants, which were the other Black female flight attendants, were going to LA, Chicago, New York. I was saying, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to Europe.
Mm, right.
I go here if something happened to this job, so I'm going to go see the world.
Mhm.
And I'm an American. I can always see America, which
Mhm.
I haven't traveled too much in America, but I've traveled all over the world.
Oh wow.
From Abu Dhabi to Dubai to Egypt to you name it, I've been there.
Mhm.
So it's really interesting. It's really interesting uh, when you have gone to all those places and you meet people. And I was always one to want to meet the natives. I didn't want to be a tourist.
Mm.
So I was by myself. So
Right.
people would come up and talk to me, and next thing I know, I was hanging out at their houses. And I think that allowed me to gain the confidence to speak to anyone.
Mhm.
As a young person, I was only 23, 24 years old. So at 23, 24, you're very adventurous.
Mm,
I
yes.
don't know if I don't know if I would get on a plane and land somewhere and take a train to Istanbul by myself today.
Right.
So I was that kind of adventurous person. I would fly to Germany and go, okay, so what's going on in Germany?
Mm.
You know, that was me. So I think that's where the confidence level came from, and not being afraid to try whatever I thought I could do. In the interior design, I knew quality as
Mm.
opposed to quantity.
Right.
And by traveling and seeing things and being in people's companies that I never even dreamt I would be in. People of unbelievable wealth, and
Mhm.
they would share it with me and take me throughout their homes. And I was like, wow, this is really, yeah, this is okay. I've never seen that before. Wait a
Right.
minute. And they would explain to me all about the art and when they would travel and I mean, they were just very gracious people all over the world that I've met, and I'm still friends with a lot of them. So
Mhm.
I think that's where my confidence came from. And then coming back home,
Mhm.
it was no big deal to deal with anybody at home, because
Yeah, it's
we
like,
were here.
"Oh, you're just an American."
It wasn't even that. It was like, I know a lot of African Americans. I know when I was growing up,
Mhm.
it was always a fear to sit in front of someone of authority and speak to them. And
Right.
my father shared something a long time ago. He said, I don't care who they are, I don't care what color they are. When you sit in front of them, you look them dead in their eyes and you speak to them.
Mm.
Don't start looking around like you're insecure. You're too tall for that.
Right.
But you always tell me, listen, you need to stand firm and be who you are and always be true to yourself.
Mm.
And that's just who I am. So
Yeah.
I never thought about being afraid to talk to anyone or do anything I wanted to do.